I feel happy. These three words sum up the tragic backstory of the Marvel Comics character Jamie Braddock, who was created as a supporting figure for the superhero Captain Britain in the 70s and ended up being a supervillain featuring in several X-Men comics. Years later, I feel happy. The utterance of these words marked a moment that changed Jamie Braddock's life forever, unleashing the latent powers within him and making him one of the mightiest reality-warping mutants in the Marvel Comics universe. Tortured to insanity, Jamie developed the ability to perceive reality as quantum strings, which he could manipulate to his will, and which basically means his control over reality had no limits and boundaries. From creating interdimensional portals to bringing back the dead, this Omega-level mutant could do every possible thing, but tragically, his dangerous powers came at a dangerous cost. In this video, we will tell you what transformed the Braddock family heir into one of the deadliest mutants the world has ever seen.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Tragic backstory of Jamie Braddock. First appearing in Captain Britain's comic 9th issue in 1976, Jamie Braddock was the older brother of twins Brian Braddock, aka superhero Captain Britain, and Betsy Braddock, aka the telepath mutant Psylocke. Jamie shared an age gap of a decade with his younger siblings and sometimes felt left out of their camaraderie. The trio of siblings were born to Lady Elizabeth Braddock and Sir James Braddock, who was sent to Earth 616 by the great wizard Merlin to procreate champions. While both Brian and Betsy developed unique abilities, Jamie was just an ordinary kid who was often expected to watch over his twin siblings. While Jamie resented the twins' bond, he was also extremely protective of the two, especially the extroverted Betsy. During his boarding school days, Jamie befriended the likes of Ned Horrocks and Godfrey Caltrop, with Amina Singh becoming his girlfriend. The quartet, who named themselves the Forsaken, would often proudly engage in rebellious activities, resulting in their expulsion from several schools. Jamie eventually became a top Formula One race driver and lifted the World Championship trophy twice. He also came to be known as a financial genius, taking Braddock Industries to new heights under his leadership. Now in his early 30s, Jamie would be the only child of Sir James Braddock who did not exhibit any extraordinary powers. Meanwhile, tragedy would strike the Braddock family when the sentient computer mastermind crafted by Braddock Sr. killed him and his wife, thus making Jamie the Lord of Braddock Manor. Mastermind targeted Jamie as well through its pawn, Christopher Thorne, aka Dr. Sin, prompting Betsy to call Brian home from college. One day, when the Braddock siblings were discussing how Dr. Sin's reign of terror needed to end and how he has transformed all those who opposed him into his devoted slaves, Betsy was suddenly taken over by the infamous Doctor's hypnotic spell. Brian had to transform himself into his Captain Britain persona in order to stop Betsy's murderous spree and revealed his identity to Jamie. As a protective brother, Jamie subsequently offered help to Captain Britain in a future mission, but was snubbed rudely by the superhero. However, Jamie eventually went on to assist him on several missions. When Betsy got preoccupied with her modeling career and Brian moved to another country, Jamie lost touch with both his siblings. Jamie got drawn into the world of bribery when a criminal organization paid him a hefty amount for losing a car race, which Jamie won anyway. As he continued making illegal bets and his debts grew, Jamie engaged in more unlawful activities to repay the money and got embroiled in serious crimes such as murder and slave trading in Africa. He raided aid convoys and sold off diluted supplies to the black market and the aid workers as slaves. Jamie's illegal activities caught the attention of the British intelligence agency Resources Control Executive, who passed on the mission to stop Jamie to the menacing scientist Dr. Crocodile, King of Mangawi. Dr. Crocodile and the thugs whom Jamie owed money to targeted Jamie and the other members of the Forsaken at a race, when surprisingly they were rescued by the First Fallen, a cosmic being. The First Fallen intended to freeze reality at the point of perfection and had identified Jamie as the one to be able to do that, though Jamie had still not manifested his powers yet. When Jamie refused to be his mindless pawn and escaped his clutches, he was kidnapped by Dr. Crocodile, who believed that Brian was party to Jamie's crimes and forced Jamie to summon his superhero brother. Dr. Crocodile's assistant, the witch doctor, created hallucinations about Jamie's crimes to observe Brian's reactions to them. Convinced that Brian was unaware of Jamie's gruesome crimes, he was let go of, following which a shocked Brian abandoned his brother and left him to his fate. Subjected to Dr. Crocodile's mystical tortures and his attempts at curing his evil nature, Jamie's spirit was broken and his mind was damaged, leading him to believe that the world around him was only a dream. It was at this moment that his fractured mind released his latent mutant power of being able to control all of reality. The tragically haunting comic sequence has Jamie look directly at the readers and exclaim that he is in a state of euphoria, who can now see the intricate process of how the fabric of reality is woven. But the world he perceives is not quite the one we do. Read the comics. He can now perceive reality as filaments of quantum energy, so fragile that they would snap at the slightest touch, only to then miraculously reform and renew themselves immediately thereafter. Thus, Jamie's reality warping powers manifested at the exact same moment he lost his sanity. Interesting facts about Jamie Braddock. Now, that was how Jamie Braddock manifested his powers. Meanwhile, here's some interesting trivia about the Omega level mutant. While Jamie couldn't tap into his powers till he was well into his adulthood, once he did, his impossible abilities outshined the other Braddock siblings, which was admitted by Betsy in the 464th issue of the Uncanny X-Men comics. Power runs deep in our family. He got the full measure, the ability to pull the quantum strings to define causality. He got himself so tangled he'll never twist free, she said. Unlike other mutants who manifest their powers early, Jamie was a late bloomer. But like some of his fellow mutants, he had to undergo an intensely traumatic event to trigger his reality warping ability. Following the intense psychological duress under Dr. Crocodile's captivity, Jamie's mental health suffered permanent damages, as a result of which his sanity fluctuated constantly. Jamie switched between phases of relatively reasonable behavior and going wildly insane. In the number 472nd issue of the Uncanny X-Men comics, Jamie revealed he resurrected his sister Betsy exactly 1 year after she was stabbed by the supervillain Vargas in Spain, making her reappear exactly at the spot she had died. While resurrecting Betsy, Jamie made a few essential alterations to her, making her immune to psychic attacks, dark magic, and reality alteration. Big Brother Jamie also sacrificed himself to prevent Betsy from being used as a pawn against the Forsaken, who were being led by the First Fallen. However, you would be surprised to know that in the latter timeline, Betsy would be the reason behind Jamie's death. Once Jamie appeared mentally stable and his morality straightened up, he joined his brother Brian as part of the Captain Britain Corps to defend Otherworld from the attacks of the Goat. This villainous entity was revealed to be a future version of Jamie possessed by the Goat demon Horoamzi, whose sole intention was to conquer the universe and become the god of all. As the Goat's powers became uncontrollable, Betsy decided to telepathically control Brian into capturing Jamie and twisting his head, thus killing him and erasing the future corrupt incarnation of him from the multiverse. Marvelous story arc of Jamie Braddock. Jamie Braddock's storyline did not end just there, as he was resurrected by a bunch of magicians, but more on that later. First, let's pick it up from where we left earlier in the Captain Britain comics storyline. After Jamie lost his sanity and unknowingly became a top-tier reality-warping mutant, he had to be rescued from Dr. Crocodile's torture chamber, and the job was carried out by the character Sat Year 9 from Another Earth, who assumed the identity of Courtney Ross from Earth 616. Courtney knew about Jamie's dormant powers long before they were about to be manifested under Dr. Crocodile's captivity, and simply waited patiently for Jamie to go through the painful process so that later she could exploit Jamie's powers to fulfill her own agenda. When the mercenary group TechNet, hired by Courtney to retrieve Jamie, turned on him, Jamie, having just developed new powers, wiped out their memory and left him with his savior, but not before turning his captor into an actual crocodile. Consumed by his new powers, Jamie needed an accomplice, and he converted Courtney's assistant into a doppelganger of the London criminal Vixen, while the real one was transformed into a fox earlier. The Jamie and Vixen team-up began attacking the superhero group Excalibur, which also included Jamie's brother Brian. In an ensuing clash, Jamie was incapacitated after Betsy pierced his head with her psionic sword. Courtney eventually abandoned the comatose Jamie, following which his siblings attempted to revive him with Betsy's telepathic abilities, but Jamie rejected the treatment and returned to his vegetative state. Jamie's next appearance was in the Uncanny X-Men comics, in which he fought the cosmic threat of the Forsaken and died to save the universe. During this time, another villain with reality-manipulating powers named Mad Jim Jaspers also mysteriously appeared. Jamie also featured briefly in the Captain Britain and MI-13 comics and assisted his brother Brian in navigating an illusion generated by the demonic lord Plokta. However, this version of Jamie could also have been a figment of Brian's imagination or one of Lord Plokta's illusions. The events of Jamie's next appearance, when Brian and Betsy were struggling to subdue the Goat Menace, were what led to his death at the hands of a mind-controlled Brian. Soon enough, Jamie was brought back from the dead by dark acts performed by a group of magicians who became his followers. Subsequently, taking an interest in dark magic, Jamie began pursuing the Space Stone, which was being guarded by the Black Widow. Jamie poisoned Black Widow by summoning an asp from the 6th dimension and having it bite her. When Black Widow stabbed him and severed his leg, multiple asps emerged from Jamie's body, seemingly killing him. Jamie was resurrected yet again, this time by the mutant group The Five after the mutant nation of Krakoa was established. When the clashes between Krakoa and Otherworld erupted, Apocalypse forced Krakoa's two champions, Betsy and Brian, into battle, during which Betsy accidentally slaughtered her twin brother, only to realize that it may have been the work of her brother Jamie. He is subsequently crowned as the monarch of Otherworld's Avalon Kingdom, which has been merged with Krakoa. As the king of Avalon, Jamie resurrected Brian, freed him from the psionic control, and also acted generous to the people of Krakoa, enabling them to access Avalon's library through a particular gateway named Apocalypse and Exodus. Unveiling the quantum powerhouse, Jamie Braddock's abilities and powers explained. Now let's take a look at what Jamie Braddock as a quantum powerhouse was capable of. Undoubtedly, Jamie's greatest power was his ability to pull the quantum strings to play around with reality. Jamie was able to perceive the world as a mesh of cosmic filaments, which he could manipulate just by thinking about it and hence alter reality. Initially, Jamie's reality warping powers were restricted to his immediate surroundings and weren't strong enough for phased beings. However, his range and powers grew over the course of his many resurrections. As an Omega-level mutant, Jamie's ability knew no bounds, although his powers varied in intensity with his fluctuating sanity. At the temporal level, Jamie could split his own timeline into many and incorporate new beings into it. Jamie could generate new creations out of thin air with just a thought, such as a psionic butterfly or a space station for Mars. With his control over all forms of energy, Jamie could create duplicates of people and reshape objects. Jamie manifested the fully functioning version of the deadly symbiote called Fury, modeled after its original incarnation from Earth-238, where it was the creation of the reality-warping Mad Jim Jaspers. This Braddock sibling could open portals into other dimensions simply for viewing events and could teleport himself and others not only across distances but also through dimensions. Jamie was seen granting special abilities to Betsy by altering her composition, making her immune to reality manipulating and telepathic attacks. After his resurrection by dark magic, Jamie exhibited magical powers with which he could summon creatures from other dimensions and mind control others. Jamie had the power of resurrection, having brought back his siblings Betsy and Brian from the dead. He even revived his childhood nanny, Emma Collins, at the Braddock Manor. Jamie, also equipped with the power of healing wounds, exhibited excellent durability, having survived several brutal physical attacks. Alternate versions of Jamie Braddock. As if one incarnation of Jamie Braddock wasn't enough, that his eldest Braddock sibling also appeared in alternate realities. In Marvel's The Ultimates comics, Jamie took on the mantle of Captain Britain after Brian died battling cancer and got entrusted with the responsibility of leading a super soldier program. He joined the superhero team of the Ultimates after Captain Italy and Captain France died in the long-running clash with a villainous army called the City. Subsequently, Jamie teamed up with Thor to take on the adversaries. In this reality, Jamie Braddock's powers differed from his original incarnation and were more generic, like super enhanced speed, extreme durability, flight, and strength. Another incarnation of Jamie on Earth 9019 ended up murdering his brother Brian, while on Earth 28927, Jamie fought alongside Captain Britain against the Chaos Commanders and the Aaronites. In the House of M reality, Jamie developed mutant powers and acted as the peacemaker when the mutant kind clashed with the humans. After the situation was pacified, Jamie mysteriously disappeared and prompted Magneto to point out that the United Kingdom should be protected by the eldest of the Braddock siblings. In the absence of Jamie, Brian accepted the role of Captain Britain. Jamie Braddock's blink and miss film presence. The character of Jamie Braddock has not appeared in films to date. However, Jamie was mentioned in a blink and miss moment in the 2003 film X2 X-Men United. Jamie Braddock's name appeared on the screen listed under Mutants when Mystique accessed Colonel William Stryker's files on a computer. Jamie Braddock is undoubtedly one of the most dangerous and powerful mutants of the Marvel Universe, who went from being a protective brother to a criminal mastermind, transformed into a reality-warping villain, and then became the monarch of Avalon. Initially overshadowed by Captain Britain and Psylocke, Jamie Braddock's story arc reached Omega levels, albeit at the cost of his sanity. Do you guys think Jamie Braddock deserves to be explored more in the comics and other media? Don't forget to tell us in the comments below. If you liked our video, please give us a shout out and stay tuned for more marvelous content.